Shibuya 15 is something of a troubling question when discussing its narrative as a whole. Taken at face value, Tsuyoshi returning to the virtual world of Shibuya in the final 2-minute scene of the show appears to go against everything the show was building to. Reality rejected as the unreal is chosen over the real, among other things. A show in which escaping Shibuya is the first major plot point set up, ends with its most important characters still there. By all accounts, it should be a failure, but I think there's quite a bit going on here. To discuss the importance of leaving Shibuya in the first place, we need to establish what Shibuya is. What being trapped there means for its principal cast. Shibuya is a virtual version of the district of the same name, populated largely by a class of teenagers in rehabilitation, those teens designated as being unfit for the outside world. Through Shibuya, they act out the personas granted to them, taking part in a 3-way gang conflict. Now, right away we have something that might seem strange without the proper context. Shibuya is meant to be rehabilitation, yet its setting is one of gang violence. No real effort being made to stop these kids from their violent quarreling and territory wars. Kengo says that the gang fighting is a way to get the violence and nonconformity out of their systems, which is something of a tendency among delinquent youths. In a linked article, some interesting figures are noted in the 1980s, that 15 out of every 1,000 minors were arrested, compared to 3 out of 1,000 adults. With criminal records becoming permanent after the age of 21, many delinquents would reform between the ages of 19 to 21 and become functioning members of society. This structure seems to insinuate that delinquency is a way for youths to express some level of freedom against the systems that confine them in a time period where such was not permanently damaging to their social status, before growing up and going into society proper. Allowing for gang fights in a virtual realm similarly allows this kind of youthful discretion. However, there is a line, one in regards to peace. Resetting is a major mechanic in Shibuya. Upon virtual death, the character is resurrected with a new personality, becoming a different character in the setting, most clearly with the tough love gen boss Asagi becoming Miyu, the quirky and sadistic right hand of Palhan's leader. And when I say resurrection, I don't mean that lightly. One of the prevailing images of the show is that of the 2 Shibuya buildings, one the 109 that stands in the actual Shibuya, and the other with the number 108 instead. This number is in reference to the 108 earthly desires spoken of in Buddhism, calling attention to a helpful framework in understanding the show, one of the main things to take from it being the use of resetting as a stand-in for Buddhistic reincarnation. By living and reliving so many lives, the soul learns and grows until it achieves nirvana, and upon meeting one's death, they achieve parinirvana, the enlightened soul exiting the cycle of reincarnation. When applied back to Shibuya, we see further context of what it means to leave the system, though it's not an absolute allegory, just a partial one for reasons I'll get into. Death plays a significant role in the system of Shibuya, because unlike the standard juvenile delinquency that can more or less be rewritten, murder is a permanent mark, one that renders the criminal no longer to be accepted by society in any capacity, and this fact is why Shibuya exists. In reality, Emma committed a severe act of violence, the social panic leading to the creation of Shibuya as a way to rehabilitate those who might commit murder. With the help of reincarnation, death is used as a lesson, the agent of death being a man named for eternal peace. Whenever a student in Shibuya threatens to cross that line and attempt or commit murder, peace arrives to put a stop to those impulses. On paper, this is intended to de-incentivize that which will tip the students off the course of their lives, and into a path at complete odds with the rest of the world. Tsuyoshi even notes that peace doesn't seem that bad, as in killing those who might kill, he saves the lives of other students. Those who break had attempted to kill, therefore they are unfit for society and need to be reformed. Death and reincarnation offered as a way for them to learn their lesson, the process repeated until rehabilitation is complete. However, that would imply the system is perfect, working as intended, when in truth the system is a human creation, and thus humanely flawed. Ultima implanted Emma's consciousness into Shibuya to give her a chance at some kind of a life, because in the real world, as a criminal, she has become irreparably broken. After the full reset towards the end of the show, while among the regular students, she's the first to break. The system is one of rehabilitation, but through her circumstances, Emma is not within the scope of its rehabilitation. Shibuya is mentioned as being a city of youth, with all the trendy fashion, food, and opportunities to fight and rebel that a child could want. However, Ultima mentions that being 15 is just a moment in one's life, one they won't think about specifically when they grow older. To someone youthful, the present time seems like everything, even though as an adult, it all blends together. Yet the system of rehabilitation, by restricting itself to those 15-year-olds, places far more weight on this short period of life, as though it were a make-or-break period that determines one's entire future. It demands the students grow up so that they can return to reality, But in its rehabilitation through death and rebirth, it creates a cycle of endless youth in a city meant to be tantalizing to that youth. Kengo comes to retaliate against the system upon realizing that the chairman's desire to dominate and hold power over the students, trapping them there, is ultimately too restricting, fighting to help them find the freedom to grow outside the flawed system. The chairman looks down on the children who might disrupt order, disrupt peace, calling in the one who makes peace. Those who murder are disruptors of order, and as an authority, peace arrives, returning things to order by punishing the errant elements. The students are naturally inclined to accept this, accept their fates in the system, but Emma rejects it, rejecting peace as the one who is believed to never be able to fit in with a peaceful society again. As established, the system isn't inherently right. Fighting against an incorrect system will inevitably cause discord and conflict, but that is exactly what might allow for change. Emma's rejection of peace steadily allowing for Shibuya to change. However, she isn't the only acting agent, and her major motive to leave Shibuya comes not from her, but Rev, a character in Shibuya who died and became Tsuyoshi, the main perspective character throughout the show, and his influence on her is important as his goal was not merely to leave Shibuya, but to go on to the moon afterwards, an image seen throughout the series, and heavily recurring in the final scene of the show. Again, we must look to Buddhism to better understand why this symbol specifically is used. In Buddhism, the moon is a symbol representing truth and enlightenment, understanding. To fully exit the cycle of reincarnation, one must reach enlightenment. So in seeking the moon, Tsuyoshi seeks to reach that truth and understanding, symbolically aiming to leave the eternal youth of Shibuya in his desire to become an astronaut, which can only be accomplished in adulthood, rejecting its faulty peace and enforced stagnancy of youth. He points at the moon, and Emma looks at him. In the final conflict against peace, even though Emma is at odds with the outside world, the two decide to leave and go forward on their own 2 feet, no matter how harsh reality might be for them. Even though Emma is at odds with that world, they will still fight for her to have a place in it. And yet, the true reality is a harsh one. While everyone, including Tsuyoshi, leaves, Emma remains trapped. Her symbolic rejection from the world leaves her in a state where she cannot return to it, ultimately asking Tsuyoshi if this difficult reality is one that they can overcome. It's somber. Emma, despite wanting to go forward, is still stuck in her youth and trapped by society at large. So Tsuyoshi too seems to go back on that path forward, returning to the virtual reality. Clearly, we see the moon, not yet full. Enlightenment has not been fully achieved. To further explain all return to the moon symbolism, represented in 3 key pieces of Buddhist artwork. The first is the image of the monkey looking at the reflection of the moon. The monkey believes himself to be knowledgeable, but in truth is wrong, stuck on a falsehood. The full moons visible in the ending scenes are images, not the real one, and thus, not to be confused with actual enlightenment. The idea can also be seen in the characters populating Shibuya, seeing the virtual world as real and rejecting its true nature when questioned. The second piece of art is that of the priest Hote pointing upwards at the unseen moon. While he observes the truth, the art itself focuses only on him, someone guiding the way. While one can know the truth, knowing does not equal understanding. Seeing the path, or trying to follow one who knows the path, does not mean one has achieved true understanding themselves. While Tsuyoshi, the figurative Hote in this sense, sees the moon and strives for it, Emma did not want to leave Shibuya to escape her youth or reject peace and stagnancy, but she wanted to be with Tsuyoshi. Note how he is hungry for that desire, while Emma cannot bring herself to eat. While he pointed at the moon, she was watching his finger, following the same path as him without truly understanding it. The third and final image is that of the moon itself, drawn as a circle in one stroke. What I want to highlight here is that it's a circle with a clear beginning and end, looped around. The process of learning and understanding laid out in the images is a cyclical one. One first believes themselves to understand, then upon realizing that they were wrong, looks to other ways to know, and eventually through thought and reflection, knowing becomes understanding. The story starts here at the beginning of the circle, and ends again at the beginning, but only after a full rotation. Even if the world abandoned Emma and left her trapped, Tsuyoshi didn't. While they must begin again, both of them have learned and grown because they moved forward, once again stepping on that road to enlightenment. This analysis in part brought to you by the reading I did to better understand Bleach. Joking aside, this video does go into the same symbols I talked about in the Aizen video. Be sure to stick around for more of my Tokutober videos. Anyway, I'd like to thank my patrons for their support. Thanks Naturally, Mr. Cynical, Flarbu, Moz, Gloogle, Brorike, Bayonort, Oliver Mort, Offline But Not, Tengoon, and Mohammed Akim. Thank you for watching.